Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 12th, 2018. Approve the council agenda and any agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor, Council, I don't have any additions or corrections at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocations from Our Savior's Lutheran Church. Good evening.
Good evening. Let us pray. In the name of God the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty God, you have given us this good land as a heritage. Grant that we remember your generosity and constantly do your will. Bless our land with honest industry, truthful education, and honorable way of life. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil course of action. Support us in defending our liberties, and give those to whom we have entrusted the authority of government the spirit of wisdom, that there may be justice and peace in our land. When times are prosperous, may our hearts be thankful, and in troubled times do not let our trust in you fail. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Next, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything?
I just wanted to thank everybody that replaced their flags for for Memorial Day.
And with that, last night, the Elks had Flag Day celebration, and they did an excellent job again. So just want to recognize the Elks for putting that on. Anything else? Presentation of MRPA Awards of Excellence. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I'm Joey Schugel with the City of New Ulm Park and Recreation Department, but I'm here today representing Minnesota Recreation and Park Association Awards Committee, and with me is...
Good evening, I'm Bridget Lindeman, and I'm with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
And it took two of us because Hutchinson had such an awesome year last year to bring you all these plaques here tonight. So first off, we just want to give everyone just a quick background on what MRPA is. MRPA, as I said, is the Minnesota Recreation and Park Association. It was formed in 1937, and it's made up of over 850 professionals, corporate members, students, and boards and commission, and also retired members. And it's a state agency. And what came from it, one of the great things that comes from MRPA is the awards committee, which was formed in 1987 to recognize communities and professionals in the fields of parks and recreation. And that's why we're here today. This year also, the awards of excellence are not only presented by Minnesota Recreation and Park Association, but a flagship sponsor in Highway Federal Credit Union. So we have them to thank. And with these projects, there's people in the field are given the opportunity to recognize themselves with a great project they've done, and then or recognize an individual for individual awards. There's two different award sessions. We're here to present on projects that have been done today, and as I said, you guys had a great year. So we'll get started on that. The first one we're going to talk about is the Rotary Park Playground. So the way we understand it and through the application, it's one of the premier parks, if not the premier park in Hutchinson, and has a lot of great partnerships, and it couldn't have been done without the Rotarians and their hard work and effort in making this project happen. So that's one thing that definitely stood out to me and other awards members as we rated the applications in this award. So great job on this, this park. Great community-wide support there. So,
So, yeah, come up and, Jim. You gotta come back up here.
all right.
Excuse me just a second. You gotta tell us who you are, what you all did.
Hi, my name is Jim Wendling, and I'm a new resident of Hutchinson now. I moved back into town after 18 years, but I've been with Rotary since they kicked me out of JC's when I was too old. And we were just speaking in the other room when we first started looking at Rotary Park. It was Dolph Moon, new to the community, and he contacted...
That long ago?
A long time ago. And it was Barry Anderson and I and Phil Graves. We were all Rotarians. And Dolph walked through a pasture on the north side of town, and Dolph asked if we wanted to adopt it as a park. And here they're baling the hay and everything. So, but if you have a chance to drive down School Road North, just to look and see what has been done, and it's a big, great partnership of the city of Hutchinson and Rotary. We worked well together, and we've accomplished a lot. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so the next project that was awarded is the Hutchinson Signage and Wayfinding Master Plan. And this project really stood out for a few reasons. One thing that definitely stood out to me is the scope of this project, bringing everything together from the Loose Line Trail and the regional significance of that. And for a community the size of Hutchinson to have something like this, which you normally see in urban and suburban areas, just a tremendous project with a lot of moving parts. And definitely Dolph and Dan Jokum and staff who were integral in this project happening. Should be very proud of yourselves. And Dan, could you come up and accept that?
Mary.
Thank you.
Also chamber.
Just note real quick here, obviously.
Oh, Dan, come on now, you gotta introduce yourself now.
Oh, everybody should know. Dan Jokum, City Planning Director. Just wanted to note a project like this obviously takes a lot of partners to make that happen, and I think it's evident here with the city, the chamber, the Downtown Association, as well as the EDA. We had a great partnership in working with Dolph and the Parks Department as well to make this project happen. Thank you.
Mary, you have something to say, I'm sure.
Yeah, much and Hutch. I'm Mary Hudson. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce.
You forgot.
Hashtag much and
Okay,
Hutch.
thank you.
Hashtag many awards and Hutch. Hashtag award-winning much
Yeah.
and Hutch. Obviously, we're very honored to be part of the project. When I go to other communities and talk to people about Hutchinson, we talk about the collaborative effort here, and this is one of those great instances where we were able to collaborate. It's really important for our work as the tourism arm of the chamber as well, so thank you so much for the opportunity to actually participate.
Thanks, man. Dan, Mary.
Okay, and our final project, only 3, is the
We'll try
Hutchin-
for 4 next year.
Okay, the Hutchinson Outdoor Family Aquatic Center. And this project, again, the regional significance, the tourism that it can bring, and as you counselors know, a project like this that comes forward, it's sometimes a tough project to pass, and it's great to see that support that you put back into the community and a project like this that is a great backbone in the summer. So great job by Hutchinson's staff, Dolph and Marv. Maybe you both want to come up and accept this one.
Marv, Dolph.
Marv and Dolph.
Great job.
Dolph Moon, 635 Franklin Street Southwest.
Hey, Marv, no, you gotta come back up here, please.
Now, I would say, just a couple comments, the Hutchinson Aquatic Center was just a super project, and I really want to thank the elected officials for getting behind the project. And a special thank you to Matt Yannick, our city administrator, who worked tirelessly with staff almost on every very small detail, and there were a lot of details, let me tell you. But Matt was just a joy to work with on the project. I think our community can be very proud of the outcome. And then if somebody could bring some decent weather, we would be thrilled. Mark?
Mayor and Council, happy to be here tonight. I'm Marv Haugen, the Facilities and Operations Manager for the city. And I just tag along with what Dolph said, not only Matt Yannick, but our whole city staff, different departments. As you remember, we had some setbacks, or one big setback when who knew that a whole pool could float out of the ground? So after that happened, we really had to scramble, and the contractors did an excellent job. But city staff and city departments that we worked with, especially leading up to the final day when we opened, we weren't even sure we were going to open on time. And if you remember, it was my birthday. That was a big day. Anyway, we made it on time, and I just want to say a big thank you to, like Dolph said, the elected officials, but also the city staff that really came forward. And if you go to the Aquatic Center, it's a beautiful spot. I think we did it just right. We serve a lot of people. People really seem to like what we've done, so thank you.
You can go down the zip line upside down.
I have.
Thank you.
All right.
think one person, if I might add to that, needs a thank you is Councilmember Bill Arndt, who helped to approve the project, and I just saw him in the audience, so just wanted to point that out.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for adding us to the agenda.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll see you next year, maybe.
Obviously, a special thanks to Dolph and Sarah and Mark and the whole park and rec department and Andy Reid for taking out a $5,000 insurance policy that saved us $650,000.
Yeah.
It was a complete team effort with all of these projects. Obviously, we talk about community support, and when you look at what the Rotary has put into that, and what the Elks have done up at their park, and what we have in town can't be done without the support of the community itself, and I think that's evident in our park system specifically.
Moving on, we have resolution number 14904, resolution accepting cash donation from Dirk Casper for the Law Enforcement Memorial Park.
Mr. Casper has donated $100 so we need to officially accept that.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Public comment, citizens addressing the council, please come forward, state your name and address, and keep it under 5 minutes, please.
I do. I have some comments regarding item 10 tonight. The utility proposal.
Name and address, please.
Bill Jaware, 805 Harrington.
Thank you.
What I have for you, I identified for each council members here. Utilities is restructuring their rate for all the customers. And if you see my chart here, you will notice that the examples here I have residential on the top. This is my actual bill. So if you look at the monthly difference, by the end of their 2019 proposal here, I'll be paying $2 more per month for my electricity. And that's because the kilowatt hour rate actually went down, but there is customer charge attached, which is going up between now and 2019. My customer charge in 2019 will be 20% of my electric bill. The example 2, which is the large industrial customers, that's their large industrial rate code. And as I understand it, there are 2 customers in that rate code, very large industrial customers. To be in that rate code, you have to have a demand of over 4,000 kilowatts per month. The example I've had here is I plugged in a customer with 5,000 kilowatt average per month. So if you look at this, by the time their 2019 proposal is in effect, that customer will be receiving, versus today, a savings of $14,969 per month, a yearly reduction in that customer's bill of $179,635 a month. And the reason they're getting such a discount compared to us small residential customers and the small business customers is that the monthly fee will be paying is 20% of my electric bill. The monthly fee, which they will now be paying, is 0.000735% of their electric bill. Minuscule, extremely minuscule part, whereas mine is 20%. I think this rate code change is very unfair to the small residential and the small industrial customers, because the more you use, the more you're going to save, the more your bill is going to go down. And the small residential customer, average house, average utility bill, I'm going to be paying more. And the large customers are going to be receiving a substantial deduction or reduced rate. And as I understand it, when Mr. Carter took over, one of his first projects was to secure a rate decrease for the 2 customers Hutch Utilities has in this rate code. And at that time, they secured a rather large decrease in the rate for both of those customers. And it looks like now they're getting quite a huge one again. So that's all I have to say. Thank you much.
All right, thanks, Bill. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Morgan Baum, 925 2nd Avenue Southwest. I'm here tonight to speak about item number 11 on the agenda. First off, I want to say I'm still in favor of a moment of silence. However, I want to applaud Matt and his team for coming up with what I think is a balanced policy and a well-thought-out policy as alternative to the non-policy that was in place before for the invocation. And I think that your efforts to include all religions and non-religions was very appreciated, and I hope that the council will take this forward and put this policy in place at the next meeting. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Craig Bishop, 221 Fremont here in Hutchinson. Can you just give us a little bit of enlighten us a little bit about what the discussion or the policy is going to change, how it's going to change? Just so we kind of know what you're going to talk about.
Actually, we don't have a policy per se right now.
I see.
So they're just.
Currently, there's no policy in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilman Loftal requested that we would put a policy in place, so that's what we're doing.
Well,
Okay, well,
essentially, I think the change, and that's what you were asking about, is right now the Ecumenical Society or, group makes the arrangements in the schedule.
Right.
As it is now, what's being proposed is that city staff would do that by sending out invites to all the churches in the city. So that's the difference. And that would actually expand the number of churches and that could conceivably be in the pool.
Right. Well, I just thought, I just was curious about what you were doing because predominantly we're a Christian community. And so I think the way you had it before, it's been that way since the 1960s. Seemed like it was just the Ministerial Association took over and just did it, and they were able to do it themselves. So I'm not really sure where you were going to go with that. So I just think the way you had it before was not a problem. I think it's raised some concerns in the community about what's going on, and And I just kind of wonder what the agenda is, what you two guys are trying to do or something. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I just feel like we had a good arrangement before the way it was.
No.
Well, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
I'm Jerry Messer from 1392 Bradford Street. I just moved, that's why I'm hesitating. Just food for thought, okay? I'm going to read a couple of little articles here from the Bible in America, okay? And I believe that this group is all a Bible-believing group, okay? Let me just read something. And this is by Vice President, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Congressman, former diplomat, and noted businessman Earl Warren. He said this: I believe no one can read the history of our country without realizing that the good book and the spirit of the Savior have from the beginning been our guiding geniuses. I believe the entire Bill of Rights came into being because of the knowledge our forefathers had of the Bible and their belief in it. Freedom of belief, of expression, of assembly, of petition, the dignity of the individual, the sanctity of the home, equal justice under the law, and the reservation of powers to the people. I like to believe we are living today in the spirit of the Christian religion. I like also to believe that as long as we do so, no great harm can come to our country. One more. No, I got two more, actually. And this was Benjamin Franklin speaking to President George Washington. Mr. President, in this situation of assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, in the beginning of the contest with Great Britain, we were sensible of danger. We had daily prayer in this room for divine protection. And have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? The longer I live, and that goes with me too, the longer I live, the more convincing proof I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, it is probable that an empire can rise without his aid. Unless the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe this: without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. And I've got one more, and this is from the Holy Scriptures, 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. And I want you to hang on to this. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. We need to keep that in mind, any decision that's made here. Thank you.
We are keeping the invocation, we're just having a policy that governs it, correct? More or less?
Can help the council determine how it gets selected, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, I mean, really, if this discussion is going to continue to occur, it should occur in the appropriate place on the agenda, because this is an item on the agenda, and it's not appropriate for us to be having this discussion at the public comment period.
It's not even a public hearing, so.
Yeah. So I'll take
See,
one
I'm
more quick one.
John Bryan,
and that's
1391
it.
Heritage, and I would like to address the invocation at council meetings. So do you want me to delay my comments until then?
It's the mayor's discretion, I guess, but technically.
We're going to take one more, and then we're not going to take any more comments after this.
Okay, once again, John Bryan, 1391 Heritage Avenue Northwest. My comments are going to be based on an article I received from the Family Research Council, and then a presentation that I prepared on the basis of a video entitled America's Godly Heritage. First of all, you perhaps can see a picture of the D-Day invasion, a landing craft, and the troops going forward. The odds the Allies faced then were as steep as the Normandy cliffs. So many died climbing. Eric McTaxis, like so many others, wonders if that victory would have been possible without the faith of millions that day. Stores closed and prayer services were swiftly organized in small towns and big cities. New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia took to the airways, urging citizens to send forth their prayers to Almighty God. Many people, FDR said to him to call the nation to a single day of prayer. Quoting FDR, "But because the road is long and the desire is great, I ask that our people devote themselves in a continuance of prayer." So how did we get from the place where public officials were encouraging public prayer to where we are today? So the U.S. Supreme Court rulings provide some insight. In 1892, in the case of the Church of the Holy Trinity versus the U.S., the Supreme Court said, "No purpose of action against religion can be imputed to any legislation, state, national, because this is a religious people. This is a Christian nation." What would lead the court to conclude that we are a Christian nation? The court provided 87 different historical precedents to support its conclusion. The court quoted the Founding Fathers, the acts of the Founding Fathers, the acts of Congresses, and more. In 1962, however, in the Engel versus Vitale case, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered its first ruling which completely separated Christian principles from education. The case struck down school prayer. In that 1962 case, the court redefined.
We're gonna move on. All right. Thank you for your comment.
So the point that I was going to make, the point that I was going to make is removing prayer from public settings is a march toward greater secularism, and greater secularism invites greater lawlessness and greater immorality, and I would urge the council not to go in that direction, which I understand you don't intend to do. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we have approval of minutes, regular meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2018, and the budget workshop of May 22nd, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve. Any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda, this will be approved by one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is consideration for approval of parking restriction street closure on First Avenue Southeast for music in the park events. B is consideration for approval of resolution number 14892, resolution to sell surplus property, office chairs. C is consideration for approval of resolution number 14893, resolution to sell unclaimed bicycles. B is consideration for approval of street closure for Riverside Church event on June 20th, 2018. E is consideration for approval of River Song Music Festival request. F is consideration for approval of change order number 2, letting number 8, project number 17-08, water treatment facility membrane bioreactor cassette replacements. G is consideration for approval of agreement with ISD number 423, agreement between the City of Hutchinson and School District 423 related to the establishment of operation of a joint sponsor park recreation and community education program. And under there is lease agreement with the Independent School District 423 for the use and operation of Birch Arena. And 3 is facility use agreement with School District 423. And 4 is agreement between the City of Hutchinson and School District 423 relating to the establishment and operation of joint sponsored ground maintenance program. And H is claims and appropriation and contract payments, Register A. Anything anybody wants pulled off?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of consent agenda number 2, claims and appropriation and contract payments, Register B. I have a check on there for my company,
As do I.
so.
Move to approve Register B.
I'll second.
Motion by John, second by Steve to approve Register B with Chad and myself abstaining. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Public hearing. It is 6 o'clock, so Kent.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. You may recall, we did have a public hearing on this project last fall, and we are bringing this back as a project this year, thus to follow the letter of the law, basically statute 429. We need to have another special, not special, but another public hearing on the special assessment front. So that's why this is back in front of you this evening to administer another hearing on the proposed City Alley number 17 improvement project. We've talked quite a bit about this over the last few months. Here we go. And we've arrived at an approach, we believe, on the assessment rate front that's alluded to within the board action form. Inside your packet, quickly, just to touch base again on the scope of the project and the location. We're talking about Alley 17 between Glen and Franklin, with the ends of the alley being on Milwaukee on the north end, Miller on the south end. This was a petition project. There were 4 property owners that signed a petition that initiated the project process. You may recall you did approve initiating this project process many months ago. Thus, what we bring forward this evening is a public hearing. We've established the project cost. When we ordered the hearing, we believe we have a good cost estimate with respect to a bituminous blacktop paving approach with a curb and gutter on one side, well, a curb more so, not really a gutter more so, not really a full curb and gutter for drainage purposes, similar to the alley installation last year over by Pro Auto south of 5th Avenue. And we did also look at a concrete application. That cost was approximately 30% more. Right around $130 a lineal foot in comparison to about $100 a lineal foot for bituminous blacktop paving and a drainage curb. So with that, I want to touch a little bit on, like I alluded to, the assessment approach, because per our adopted city assessment policy, we do not have, well, we have a formal policy, and it alludes to 100% of new alley construction being picked up by property owners. However, it also alludes to 50%, give or take, of maintenance efforts within the alleys being bared by the property owners. We did some research on past alley projects. The most similar one we could find is the alley over by the depot area directly to the east behind B&C Plumbing and the likes, those properties. We did pave that back in 2008, and at that point in time, we applied about a 50% cost share, where we applied 50% to the property side and 50%, really to the city side. It's parkland basically on the east side of that alley. That arrived at around $40 a lineal foot. That was a relatively simple project though. All we basically had to do was some rough grading and then we blacktopped it. There's no curbing out there, there's no drainage infrastructure of any sort. But it did arrive at $40 a lineal foot on a frontage basis that was applied to the B&C Plumbing property and their neighbors out in that area. So what we did at this point in time is what I already alluded to. We did do a blacktop paving design, we did a concrete design, and you get to the very end of this lengthy paragraph that's in your packet. You apply a 50% parameter. You arrive at $50 lineal foot for bituminous alley, $65 for concrete alley. That does not include any storm, sewer, drainage infrastructure other than the curb. You could make an argument that's drainage infrastructure, but in reality, that's just a trade-off of implementing blacktop instead of inverted concrete pavement. So in the end, you apply 50% to the total cost, you arrive at that $50 and $65 a lineal foot respectively. And then if you apply to the total project cost and the total lineal footage of frontage along the alley, basically it's the old lot block scenario. You have 5 lots, 66 feet wide, both sides of the alley. Thus, you have 330 feet either side, 660 total. You take 660 times $50 a lineal foot. You arrive at this $33,000. We estimate a total project cost of just short of 65. Thus, you apply that rate, take that off of the 64,856 estimated number at this point, and that would arrive at a city contribution of just short of $32,000. This is very similar to what we do on the roadway front. We establish rates for the different types of projects within the annual approval of the city's fee schedule. Then we apply those rates to the assessable frontage on any given project, and that can vary dramatically depending on how areas are platted. Some areas are very uniform, like this block per se. Others are very atypical, where like Century we dealt with this year, where we had a lot of corners that received corner credits, odd shaped lots, and we have to factor that into determining the assessable frontage. But in the end, what we arrive at on the street front, we apply the rate to the assessable frontage, and basically we just deduct that from the total project cost, and then that is the city's share, what remains, and then it's really, is the city utilizing utility funds, bonding funds, potentially state aid, federal aid funds, or other funding mechanisms, maybe a grant of some sort, the likes, to make up the city's share. Typically on a roadway project, we arrive at anywhere from 25 to 35% the total project costs being assessable. We have to arrive at least 20% to meet state statute. Any questions? I know that's a lot, but I think we've arrived at an approach that I believe we can defend within the bounds of our existing assessment policy. We do have the caveat in there that these rates in the last sentence, if there's any additional utility, storm sewer work necessary, the city reserves the right to assess for 50%, give or take, of those costs. Or honestly, you could assess for that total cost of those additional expenditures.
And I've thought of this. One thing that's different than a road project is that, a road might be 32 feet, right? That's how we adjust.
Yeah, we use a 40-foot standard width, is what we say we say our assessment rates are based on a 40-foot width basis.
And we might adjust accordingly.
Yep, we'll prorate, exactly.
Yeah. But, so, say it's 40 foot then, so 20 feet is assessed to the properties on the one side of the street, and Then the other 20 feet on the other side of the street is for those property owners. Here, we're basically having a one-lane road, and I'd say that the property owners are getting a break that way because they're sharing their 50% piece of it. I think if we are going to be equitable, especially seeing the limited amount of benefit to the city as a whole, that maybe that would be, the city would do a third, and the property owners on each side would pick up a third. So it's just my, as I've thought about it.
And I'm perfectly fine with that, and we can adjust accordingly. Like I said, for new construction, the policy, what's alluded to, or what's, I guess, quoted here is generally all costs of new alleys are borne by property owners. And by new alleys, I would read that to say any new pavement, and then it goes on to say 1/2 of the cost of constructing new pavement in an existing alley or repaving an existing alleys will be general assessed to property owners. Yeah, so you're back to, I think there's some discrepancies within that, it does, that's exactly what's in our policy. I would argue that a new alley is putting new pavement in. Granted, that's different a little bit than how this is stated, and that goes back to the 50% parameter that I ultimately decided to base this fee approach on.
So this assessment is $50 a lineal foot theoretically,
Yep.
66-foot wide lots, so $3,600 per property.
33.
33 over a 10-year period? Or we're shorter term?
Typically, at that principal amount, we would apply it over a 5-year term.
5-year period.
Yep.
So $720 a year approximately?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Do they have the option to go longer than 5 if they want, or?
Yeah, it's more of a financial discussion, and we've had assessment amounts, our roadway assessments will vary based on the accessible lineal footage, but typically when we're doing roadway projects, we're dealing on the top end assessments somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, whereas all of these are going to be $3,300 in principal amount. We're starting to get to a level from a financial standpoint, I don't know if we'd want to stretch out that term for that principal amount.
So what is it, three of the four don't even use the alley?
Yep.
Can't?
Yeah, there's two, one's an email, one's a letter within the packet, and yeah, the one note does allude to 3 of the 4 don't utilize it, and that's showing on the drawing or the aerial here.
3 to 10.
The 2 on the north end do not, and then the one on the east side on the south end doesn't.
And we had in the petition only 4 of the property owners that were on the inside that signed the petition. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd have to refresh my memory of the exact names on the petition.
6, 15, 16, 25, and 26.
There you go. Yep, exactly right, Steve. Then the 2 that we did receive correspondence from stating that they did not support the project are 636 and 646 here.
So really 4 out of 10.
Yes, and that, it takes per special assessment statute, 35% is the magic number to initiate a project.
That doesn't mean we have to follow through.
Exactly. Council ultimately, unless you want to really put it back on the property owners and say they're going to bear 100% of the cost, and the city's willing to deliver the project, but 100% of it will be assessed, that can be an approach in the end. But the city is not obligated to participate cost-wise in the project just because there's a petition by any means.
The one letter referred to the financial implications of the assessment, and don't we have an ability to forgive or defer those assessments until later on?
Yeah, there's deferment, there's certain requirements that an individual.
Income
or a
limits.
property owner needs to make, it needs to meet, yeah, for that deferral. And that's ultimately up to the city council then to.
And that would eventually be recovered when the property was transferred to a different owner or sold.
Depending on the terms of the
Yeah.
deferral, it can be at the time of
There's
transaction.
a couple different
Method.
methods.
With that, yeah, unless council has any further questions, that's.
We'll open it up for public comment then.
Pat May, 645 Glen. I did sign on in approval of it, and my main statement is I've lived here 28 years, and 646, if the gentleman's here, I'd gladly take him to task. It's a rental. It's a crud hole, and I'm using a kind word. We've had terrible renters, so I see why he's voting no, because he doesn't care about the property. If I had any say in it, we'd pave the whole lot. But what I'm getting at is, I think
And I live
if
a half
this-
a block away, and I would
Yeah,
second
you can
that,
attest to that,
so-
Chad. It's an eyesore. But at any rate, I understand it can be a financial hardship, but the alley is nasty in the spring and the fall. And if the city does choose to participate, I would appreciate it, because it's just, having lived there all that years, it's not a great alley. That's all I got.
I guess on that note, obviously, depending on the spring, we have a lot of alleys that aren't so great, so, yeah.
And are still,
Yeah.
and are still suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
Andy Erickson, I live at 616 Franklin Street. And I just wanted to point out that I've spoken to the people who live at 148 Milwaukee and 606 Franklin, the new people that just moved in there. And both of them, obviously, neither one of them are here tonight to state their opinion, but both of them said that they were in favor of it. They thought it would increase their property values, even though they don't technically use the alley. So I know that I only had 4 people sign the petition, but with Pat and those other 2, we're up to 7. And it's just
Because the people at 606 just moved there since your petition went out, didn't they?
correct. Yeah, they just moved in. I just spoke to them. And we also have quite a little bit of flooding issue between my property and 626. At any time it rains, the water just kind of runs from the alley down into the space between our 2 houses and floods that area every anytime we get any significant rainfall. So I feel like an alley with like a lined curb would definitely alleviate that issue, getting the water to run out into the street.
Which side of the alley was the curb going to be on?
I believe it's the east side.
The east side would make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Good like that.
Well, just 'cause
I don't do
the
all the
whole
work on these fronts,
the
so.
whole area slopes that way.
Yes, tip to the east side.
Yeah, but I also would graciously appreciate the city taking, splitting the cost with us property owners on this one. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comment? Motion to close the public hearing?
So
Move to close.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Chad to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have, under there, we have resolution number 14906, resolution ordering improvement and preparation of plans and specifications. And resolution number 14907, resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisements for bids.
Make a motion to approve both of them.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve both resolutions. Any other discussion? All in
So when-
favor?
what- I do have a question, sorry. Just when does the discussion come as far as the funding? I mean, are we saying now that we're going to participate at 50%?
Well, ultimately, you will approve the assessment role, similar to other projects, prior to award. So, I mean, that's, unless staff is directed from my standpoint, we'll proceed with what's proposed here, this 50% parameter.
I guess that was my intent with the motion.
And you would have the option to, obviously, at sending the assessment. We still have a bid opening, and so you'd have really two more actions. One, to accept a bid.
Yep.
Second is to accept
The assessment role.
assessment, and so you could change it at that time. I would say if there's a desire to go a different route, I would assume, prefer to know that now, then, because I think that's a fair communication then to those property owners as well.
Right. And the other thing I'm thinking about is looking at other future road projects. I don't believe we have any. Graham or Franklin is not on the forefront in the next 5 years or so.
No, they're within our pavement management program. There's obviously sections of Franklin that are, getting to a deteriorating condition, but we have a pretty full program the next few years where I don't think we're gonna have a lot of smaller street pavement management program type projects conceivably, so it'll be a while.
Was the assessment over from a few years ago when they did the mill and overlay on Franklin, on this section? It's over? Okay.
Can't remember. Franklin south of there we did.
Also didn't go to that.
Yeah, no, this is, down the south end.
Okay.
Yeah. Miller, Milwaukee, excuse me.
Okay.
You're exactly right, yeah.
Okay.
So we did pick up some of this area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other question I had was, are we going to update our policy to include better?
Yeah, that was really my intent within this action, to set a rate similar to what we do on roadways for alley improvements. And like I alluded to, it'd be $50 for a bituminous blacktop alley and $65 for concrete, with the caveat being that there's additional drainage improvements. Obviously, that would add on to that rate amount.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I think seeing that the width of the alley is shared by property owners on both sides, having split be a little bit different would be my preference, just, based on a width of one lane of a road. So, it's a third for the city and 2/3 for the property owners. And if there's stormwater parts that are part of that, 50/50 would be fine with that, but I think the pavement part is be more equitable, compared to where we're starting with other properties and other projects, so.
So Steve, I guess, question is, right now our assessment policy says up to 100%.
Yeah.
That's some of what we're struggling with. It really gives the flexibility, and so I guess, are you suggesting that gets set at a more defined?
Well, we're not charging 100% now, under this, right? Under what's being proposed, so.
Right, but that's how he's asking, do you want it to be in policy that it's set at a third or set at 50%?
I think we should have a policy where we set it at something, and I agree there is a benefit to the city in some regards, but again, an alley, just by definition, is, the main benefit is really the property owners that are adjacent to it, and so, and then, again, based on street widths and how we start with our street projects, it just seems like my recommendation would be a third, 66% property owners, 33 or 34% city.
Kent, how does you said 55 for bituminous and 65 for,
Yeah, 50 for bituminous.
how does that kind of, the percentage wise?
Well,
is that
bituminous
close?
arrived at $100 a linear foot. So, and I basically used the 50% parameter to derive a rate. So I applied 50% to 100, which is obviously 50.
Right.
And so, yeah, and that's how I was arriving at that. But, obviously, we can use a percentage policy for alleys by all means and not use the rate approach similar to what we do on roadways. The beauty of a rate approach is you can rather quickly arrive at the assessable frontage. And then you can say, property owner, here's the rate, here's your frontage, it's gonna cost you $3,300, and a lot of people might say, well, maybe not so interested anymore. And that's the beauty of it. Otherwise, you gotta say, well, here's the percentage, we don't know what it's gonna cost, we have to design it, we have to bid it, and then we get a lot of staff time and effort into it before we know what the ultimate cost is to the respective property owners. And that's my fear too. We don't want to be designing alleys and then not building them, at the end of the day, and going through this full process with
So
council.
maybe the rate could be, what if the rate was figured?
On the 2/3, 1/3
Right.
basis. Yeah, by all means, we can do that.
And I agree that it's fair, again, to have that rate structure just like we've had with the roads. I think there's been real benefit to that.
Because really, Kim, what we need to do then is update our rate schedule.
Yep, to include alleys.
Yeah.
But I think it's, we can potentially bring you for this next council meeting, have something that shows realistic, maybe a closer example on footage of what that 1/3, 2/3 would look like. The council could consider that.
My only concern is it seems like alleys can swing wildly one way or the other depending on the drainage situation. So I like the percentage. And can you tell by a drive-by a lot of times on if it's going to need a lot of work or not, or?
Well, I think you can tell if it needs a lot of work, but you have to go, they're so flat, and it really becomes what you can do grading-wise and still match garage thresholds and yards, and it becomes quite a little bit of a design effort on a lot of these. And then it's really, are there storm sewer pipes on either end of the block? Are they on both ends to tie in, or do they exist or not, or are they just on one end? It's highly variable.
Well, and that's where I went with the storm water part of it, and I agree, that's where it really started with this discussion on this project was, we're gonna do the inverted V and concrete, which it was gonna be over 100,000, 120.
Yep, and the ballpark numbers we started at, yep.
So.
Which are very conservative in nature to begin
Right,
with. Yeah.
but again, part of it was the construction for the drainage, which other projects might not have some of that, or we do different things for them. It's still drainage, but we can't use stormwater funds for this type of thing, right?
Probably shouldn't.
Yeah, so, but street projects, you can, so there's that inequity, and that's why maybe that's where the percentage comes in to be a little fair almost for,
But we can utilize the percentage to derive a rate based on, I think we did a full design on the blacktop, we did a full design on the concrete, and I'm confident we have a good basis at this point in time to derive a rate on any given cost-sharing percentage.
and the concrete would be, with the idea would be that inverted V for the drainage.
Exactly. Where you'd be forced to do that because you don't have the storm sewer, available to connect to, or you don't have the grades. The grades are so tight, it's so flat that that's the best way to make the drainage work.
So with that in mind then, with the rate structure, but based on 2/3, 1/3? be acceptable, or up that way?
I hadn't thought about it today, I guess.
Well, that's $1,000 swing in the assessment from
Yeah.
$3,300 to $4,300 per house.
What's the benefit?
Well, I think I think we should do that going forward, maybe after this project.
Well, that was supposed to be part of this, you know, that there was going to be a policy update and arrive at that, so.
Right, I just think it's a bigger discussion to be had.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can definitely, like Matt alluded to, we can bring back. We have some time here. You know, even if you authorize or approve the 2 resolutions, we can bring it back prior to the ultimate award and
determine what
assessment
the
roll
assessment will be.
approval at the very end of this.
A couple things here. I guess the policy aspect was the 50-65. What staff had brought forward. So, sounds like you're still concerned with it. So I think that's fair. I guess council has to correct me if I'm wrong, to look at that further. Maybe that's what can, you know, as for our next meeting, we provide that 50-65 option. We look at a couple of these other ones that, you know, so you guys can, you know, more in-depth discussion on that policy side of things.
Because right now, this is figured the way you had it, right? The 50 and 65.
Which was not a policy method
Right.
before.
Right.
Like I said, the language with respect to alleys within our policy, what's noted there in that board action form, I think could be improved also.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Is that the desire of the council at our next meeting?
To talk about it?
Yeah.
I'd be fine talking about it.
Be worthwhile.
Okay.
To utilize that as part of this project, just since it's kind of was the impetus really, even to where we're at now, you know, was the lack of a good policy or defined approach to it, so.
Yeah, this is something to take seriously. This will set a bit of a precedence, you know, with respect to petition alley projects.
Okay.
With that being said, you still do have a motion in a second, as I know there's still options to change it, so even approving it isn't going to, I mean, it'll be a minor impact future, but it's not the end of the road if you do decide to change your method at a future meeting, so.
Well, I mean, one thing you have to keep in consideration is, you know, you've had the hearing, you've had your proposal, you had your methodology listed out, you've come to your amounts, and I don't think you'll be able to legally assess an amount that's higher than what you've contemplated tonight. You can always go down.
So as an alternative to give us more time, maybe tabling this would more appropriate, come back, discussion on the policy part at the next meeting, and still be time to put it out there?
That's a good question, yeah, because we
Or
have
is
to
it for next year? I mean, you got the.
No, honestly, we might be bumping, and, you know, from staff standpoint, we had plenty other things to address prior to finally bringing this back, so take some of the blame for us being in June and having this hearing. It could have happened earlier, but we obviously had other priorities from a workload standpoint. So, yeah, we can do that, but we do have to ultimately go out for bids, you know, since we're assessing, we have to advertise for 3 weeks, we have to bring it back, we have to advertise for the assessment hearing, provide notices, so, yeah, the time frame gets very stretched out. I think we were looking at September construction, mid-September to begin with here, so we lose another couple weeks or a month. Yeah, we're starting to get into questionable construction season.
So the
territory.
motion as it stands, we would be looking at assessing 3,300, while the pavement management numbers came in 20% under. So perhaps this will come in 20% under, and you can tick things back up to 33%. On the flip side, it could come in higher than your estimate, but
And council can change your policy at any point on the assessment front. I think the other thing always need to keep in mind is the city has to, grant this is petition for, so maybe, but they're not picking up 100% of the cost. But anytime you assess, somebody has the argument from a benefit standpoint.
Well, and you had that communication with regard to this project as well, and that's, I think that's one of the advantages of having the system that you have now, is because it does have that flexibility. Kent does a very good job of coming before you and saying, hey, I think that we legitimately can assess this percentage of the cost while people are still receiving that benefit. Because in the end, we always have to be able to demonstrate that a property is receiving a benefit that outweighs the assessment.
I think the policy change can come after this project. I mean, we're really just talking about drawing the line in the sand before or after this project, and I don't think it'll hurt anything to have it later, just because these people have had the expectation it's going to be around this point, and to switch it now and push it into next year, I don't know that is necessary.
Because they established the cost already, so.
So I'd say let's vote on the motion on the table and.
Just on that front, we really haven't established the cost. All I brought forward is a recommendation.
Yeah.
There was also a recommended cost many months ago, so I think, I mean, I think if we're at this point in the discussion, from my standpoint, I'd rather have us examine the policy honestly and determine our approach to alleys prior to us delivering an alley project.
I'm not,
To really
knowing that there's questions out there, it just seems like it's more appropriate just to take our time. I mean, there's nothing pushing that this has to be done now. I understand that some of the property owners would like to see it done.
Yep.
Well, if Andy gets water in his basement, that'll be pressing.
No, I think this is a big deal going forward, like I alluded to. I'd hate for us to set some sort of precedence or do something that isn't desirable moving forward on the assessment front.
Still want your motion, or you want to? Motion been made and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Motion carries.
So then we'll still work on the policy.
Alrighty, moving on, discussion on the Hutchinson Utility Commission rate changes.
Mayor and council, per our city charter, we received notice on June 4th from the Hutchinson Utilities Commission. They are proposing a rate change. I know they've been discussing the rate changes for about the last 6 months. This is following a cost of rate study that they had done. They presented that cost of rate study to the city council probably 3 or 4 months ago now. So based off of the actions that was done at the Hutchinson Utilities Commission, for our charter, you have up to 30 days to veto any type of proposed rate change at Hutch Utilities. And so in front of you tonight for, I guess, discussion and consideration, as you've seen the proposed rate changes. Is there a desire for additional information, a desire to meet with Utilities Commission Board? Just trying to seek direction from you on what your intentions are with what's been proposed by the Utilities Commission.
I think it looked fine.
I talked to a couple of the commissioners and they were fine with it, so.
So my reading is the energy charge per kilowatt hour and per the gas units, actually the price is dropping for that. And there's an increased cost for the monthly customer service charge, at least for residential, which is basically, I think, your meter charge.
Correct.
Right.
It's to cover distribution
Because,
costs.
yeah, it appears to me that the break for large industrial is maybe based on volume, and it's less expensive for them to deliver the electricity or the natural gas to those large customers. That's my take on what I read. So, I mean, it seemed fine to me. I was amazed to see that kilowatt hour rates and the cost of natural gas was actually going down.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that it's, you get a break on large usage, and we talk about conservation rates for water and sewer. So, and then here, you know, and it's not huge, I guess, just in the 2-year thing, but there's actually, the plan is to have several more years. And I think this is one of the biggest things, our responsibilities in regards to the Utilities Commission and our oversight with the charter is rate changes. And I think we owe it to ourselves and the public, the users, that we understand it better and have a meeting. Again, that's our role in this. So I would like to have a meeting to talk about it more.
And I will say, you know, when the Utilities Commission approved this at their monthly board meeting, there was no comments to them regarding their rate changes. But they did offer that meeting with the city council to come and, you know, I guess, explain more, if you want to say, their rationale behind the decision that they made. So
That's one of the, with this, that's one of the issues with the meter charge, is that low users wind up seeing more of an increase, and there's less incentive to conserve because you're going to be paying this higher amount just through the fixed charge. Large energy users don't see that as much. So it's one piece of it, understanding better. It's just not these 2 years, it's looking forward a few years too.
So the question would be, do you want a joint meeting with the board? Are you asking the general manager to come down, present what? It's just, I guess, for a point of clarification. So.
If the board can make it, that's great. Offer input, but understanding that maybe not everybody can.
I would be interested in that. I mean, you know, as I read through it, there were questions about industrial. There was, I-1, I-2, and I-3, and what's the difference between all those? I mean, just my brief overview is that they're maintaining their bottom line. They're maintaining enough money for the 90-day period to pay all their bills. That appears to be what their goal is. The other issue being that the cut that 3M got, but we knew that if 3M didn't get the cut, they were probably going to do their own generation plant, so there's that to look at. But,
and I think just for the public standpoint, and to be fair to the Utilities Commission, the cost of service looks at the cost to provide the energy to the different users. And on the electric side, the residential users are getting a significant break in that from that cost of service. The industrial users are picking up a greater share of that. And so through this, one of the goals of this whole plan is to equalize those costs more accordingly by the type of rate users they are. And so there's going to be changes. There's going to be changes on the gas side too, utilities. So again, that's part of the goal within this, and I think they're trying to do it in phases to minimize the impact on the users. That's why if it was all played out, it would be 6 and 9 years, in total. But it's just another reason why having that discussion would be helpful too.
And I would note, obviously, on behalf of the Hutch Utilities, that cost of rate study is readily available to the public for review as well.
I do think we should have
A joint.
a joint meeting with them. I really do. We need to do our due diligence.
So, from the consensus of the council, what I'll do is I'll work with Jeremy on scheduling a joint workshop for us. Obviously, we should have that before our next council meeting, so just prior to
26th, well,
26, but I'm saying July
2nd.
4th. Well, is that 30 days? July 4th at the, so we'll work on trying to get that scheduled in the next week or two.
One last thing, on behalf of the large industrial users, they also pay a demand charge, so there's extra costs that residential users don't see too. Anyway, that's all.
Yes.
A lot of numbers to read
Yeah.
about that.
Discussion of invocation policy.
Mayor and council, based off of our last council meeting and direction given, put on by staff, in front of you is at least for discussion tonight as a policy, and I'll kind of walk you through what this is. Currently, we talked about previously, there is no formal policy in place on how the invocation is given to the city council. A couple things to remember: the city council's intent is the intended audience for invocation. It's given to you guys, and so with that basis for the invocation, it's also your responsibility to determine how that's going to be given to you on a regular basis. What has been done, what's been the practice for some time, like I said, we don't know exactly when it started, but the Ecumenical Association has given that to the council. My assumption is that was a request at a council at one time or another. And so, but what's been put in front of you tonight for, I guess, discussion, as we look at potentially adopting this at a future meeting, would be just kind of the scope of how this is going to play out. It goes in detail about when the invocation would take place. It gives a policy. It talks about basically how, all religious leaders and religions and denominations within the community would be notified by the city of available time slots for them to come and give the invocation. It sets some guidelines on what the expectations of what that invocation would be. It talks about how we're going to select and schedule when they'll come and give the invocation, how that'll be done, and then how we'll notify them. That's kind of obviously a brief rundown of the entire policy, but that's, I guess, my first stab at trying to put something together to help guide the city council on how they want the invocation to be delivered in the future.
And you were able to find some policies
Yeah,
out
most
there.
of this was accumulation of several other cities that have
Policies.
adopted policies. I would say it's difficult to find anything in Minnesota. But there's quite a bit of them throughout the United States, and a lot of this falls in line with the requirements of state been put forth by the Supreme Court regarding to giving the invocation.
Yeah, I mean, I was very happy with the way it was spelled out. I know there was some editing done. I liked some of the editing that was done later on. I wasn't quite sure about striking the portion about "and other representatives." I really liked the portion about limiting, so that one group can't take up all the spots. I thought that was really important. But yeah, I was very comfortable with the policy, and I thank you for all the work you did on it.
And I just, when I looked at it, I thought it was very good too. One thing that, as John alluded to, was other I really wanted it to be more of a ordained pastor, rabbi, whatever, and versus other representatives. I know one time we had a nun from the Catholic Church come, and she, as I recall, she said she wasn't allowed to say a prayer, so we did a responsive reading instead. So, and does that open it up to other lay people, So I thought by keeping it to religious leaders, that, and then it denotes what that means a little bit more, would be helpful. It also includes a section where if a resident of the city is a member of a church or congregation outside the city, that they could petition for somebody, or not petition, to ask that those church leaders be and just seems like it'd be more appropriate to have it be churches within the city. One
But
exception
I'd
would
like
be
to see Boy Scouts come. That'd be great. And done in other communities. That was my problem with, and other representatives maybe.
Well, except there is
there's
an exception where, and again, by the policy, the way it's written, the Boy Scouts wouldn't be give it in the first place, but there is a provision that I added in there where Matt had also that a council member could invite somebody to come. And so there's still a community, somebody from outside the community or,
as a guest
to provide an invitation. Last thing was, again, to limit, as it is right now, it's limit to a speaker to 2 times a year, but I thought broaden it out to limit it to 2 times per speaker or organization would be a little better.
What if there's not enough to fill the spots?
Well, there's actually going to be more churches that'll be than now.
Right, but we still might not have enough to fill all the spots.
Well, as
But
it is
that's
right
spelled
now,
out in here too.
there would be, what's it say to that, Matt?
Basically states that, the council have the option to solicit somebody to fill that spot, otherwise we'd simply leave it empty for whatever the council would desire. So if we don't have anybody to fill it, then it'd be up to the mayor to determine whether or not there'd be a moment of silence or.
For not to do anything.
Yeah, so, one of the things that the policy also talks about is obviously it talks about, if there's no expectation of anybody that's in the room or in attendance, and does highlight the fact that staff or elected officials can be given it, and that's reference to, some of the guidelines by Supreme Court and League of Minnesota Cities, so.
And actually, earlier in this, I went through, not this for this meeting, but I did go through how often we didn't have somebody and how often different churches participated, and no church was more than, I can remember, was more than twice in a year.
Right now, the Ministerial Association sets it up, so it's a church congregation gives it twice a year.
And then the last thing I added was just a box with guidelines that would go out in the letter to the representatives to highlight some of those key points.
Yes, and those are noted within the policy.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important that the letter from the city go out to the organizations so they know what the limitations and what their expectations are at the invocation.
And I think that's a value to the pastors because, or the speakers, because I've talked to a few that they said they didn't know even who they were supposed to be addressing when they first came to have the invocation. So, or what the expectations were. So providing the policy and those guidelines would be a benefit to the speakers themselves with that.
Anything else, Steve?
So, I'm just looking for direction. If there's a comfortability level with what's being proposed, it'd be at most likely the next council meeting for consideration by the city council. So,
It looks good.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I guess the question, we had some editing that was done later on today. I just wondered if people wanted the edited, prefer the edited motion or Matt's original policy. I mean, there are pretty subtle changes in between them. So.
There wasn't anything that was too,
So you would go with edited?
I would go with the edited. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
well, and that's, like I said, that's with what I'll be bringing forth here. Obviously, if, you, between now and whenever, we look to approve it, you could change your mind or not feel comfortable with something, and that would be part of the debate at the time the council's looking at.
The discussion.
So.
The discussion.
Discussion, sorry, discussion.
But no, I was very comfortable with it. I think it makes it fair and open to everyone, and that's what it's got to be. And
we're not getting rid of the invocation.
well,
And one of the, I think it was Craig, asked, why not keep it the same? Well, there is an issue based on the most recent Supreme Court ruling that it is supposed to be open to all churches and denominations and faiths. So this allows that as much as it is in the community now, and that community grows and we see changes. And that's part of the policy then, and the benefit is that it's not just for us now, but in the future as well.
So you can.
And that can still change then over
too.
time. Yeah.
Doesn't bind any council or future council.
Alrighty, anything else? Great. Unfinished business, ordinance number 18-783, ordinance revising chapter 90 of the Hutchinson City Code right-of-way, second reading and adoption. Evening, John.
Evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Before you tonight is the second reading of the, trying to think which one's first here.
Right away.
The right-of-way ordinance, which we're looking to incorporate into our code that references the League of Minnesota City model ordinance specifically related to small cell technologies, and then the city ultimately incorporated the existing language that we had relative to right-of-way applications for sidewalks and different things within the right-of-way, other facilities, private facilities, and basically merge those two together. Public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting, first reading at the last council meeting. Tonight would be the second reading of the right-of-way ordinance and adoption. The one thing that's worth noting is that we did receive some additional inquiries from one of the council members, Councilmember Cook, provided him a little bit of feedback relative to that. I'm not sure if that addressed his questions or concerns, but.
When did you send that?
Okay, I'd forward it on here later this afternoon. So I don't know if that's, you want to hold additional discussion relative to those items, but we've prepared comments and responses to those comments. But ultimately, I'd be happy to meet and discuss those items here later on. I don't believe any of them were of any substantial issue that I could see. Most of them, to me, seem like clarifications and questions more than anything else. I don't know if there's any proposed language actually being defined. There are a few items that we could definitely clean up if necessary, or if we feel it's necessary, but just wanted to bring that to your attention tonight. Be happy to answer any additional questions. It's also worth noting, I believe there's someone from Moss and Barnett that has graced us with their presence again tonight. They've been at all the meetings and hearings throughout this process, so I just wanted to make you aware of that as well, so that they are available to answer any questions specifically that you may have for them. So I'd be happy to answer any questions along lines of the right-of-way ordinance.
Either would like you to go through my questions or else give us more time. I also had some for the telecommunications, so.
Correct. And city staff has reviewed those. We know exactly what those comments are. We've had an opportunity to discuss those. Like I said, we started formulating responses here later this afternoon relative to the telecommunications that were provided later. We haven't had a chance to formulate responses to those yet either, but we can certainly do that.
Yeah, if there's a desire, I guess, to wait for some additional information, you table the second reading and formal action on it. So.
Could you send out those questions and answers to the rest of the council members then?
No,
Or could you? Yeah.
I could,
well,
yeah.
that way, if we do table it, then they're aware too, so.
I know initially that, maybe one of the questions from Mr. Littlejohn was the question about may or shall provide insurance and all that those were the things that stood out from when we did it on Planning Commission, but.
Right, and it seems like a lot of those items have either been addressed or they're comfortable with the language that's existing. They're still proposing that we consider revising to things relative to the different zoning districts where these conditional use permits and those things are applied with residential, single family, and how those things apply. But ultimately, per our conversation at the last meeting with reviewing that, hearing those comments, and I'm not taking any further action to refine based on the comments provided. It's within the regulatory requirements of the statute. We feel like it's in line with our current zoning ordinance and the intent of that. So I think the plan would be to keep that language in there as it currently exists. But other questions, I think, are different than those other ones that we'd received prior to.
And for staffs and council, I was out of town all last week, and so I was looking at some of this as I was in the evenings and provided some information on the right-of-way, and then, but the telecommunications, I just got that sent out this morning. Got back last night and worked on that.
So you were on your iPad while you were driving?
No.
Say no.
Actually, yeah, definitely not, so.
Well, Kate was driving.
So, Steve, do you just want to table it till?
Yes, I'd make that a motion, table it to the next meeting, both of them.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to table it. Any other discussion?
To table both.
Both of them, yes. Both ordinances, 18-783 and 18-784. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Acceptance of master park plan proposal.
Mayor and council, we've had some discussion for quite some time as staff. I know this was one of the items that was brought up during our strategic planning session, but as Ralph has noted, last time we done a master park system was 1979. As we've shared, at least during budget discussions, we've estimated we've got about $1 million worth of playground equipment within the community, and that doesn't include the event center, the rec center, the ice arena. And so one of the things that we felt that, especially as we've seen changing dynamics within the community, is that we really felt it was an appropriate time to take an overall big picture look at our park rec system. To see, you know, really for quite some time, we've done softball and baseball and tennis, and we've kind of done park and rec the way we've kind of always done it, but is that the way we should be doing it? And really, that's what we're hoping that this master park plan will help us, is to really, you know, put into place, when I say a capital plan or a strategic plan regarding our park and rec system for the next 10 years. And we just feel that now's the appropriate time to really take a look at that and analyze that. We've got a proposal in front of you from Hutchinson. They've done quite a bit of work for the city. I believe our downtown master plan did they do our comprehensive plan? They did our waste.
Worked with that, the revitalization, downtown revitalization.
They did a wayfinding.
Yeah, that's, okay, that's where I recognize the vice president
You know,
from
and so
wayfinding.
we've got a great working relationship with them. I guess in staff's opinion, they've done a great job, extremely professional. And so, in front of you tonight is a proposal that they submitted to do a master park plan. Staff would recommend that you guys consider it and accept it, and that you include I believe they have 2 alternative options in there, into their fee schedule, that those 2 be included with the recommendation. One was a maintenance and replacement schedule, and the other was a social pinpoint, where they really can drill down each neighborhood park, get input from the residents in that area on those parks.
Any questions for Dolph?
I like the proposal, I like what they do. I guess I was just curious, you know, I'm guessing the answer is yes, but integrate with like the downtown and the comp plans, you know, kind of bring everything together.
Yeah, I think that's the discussions Dan Joka, myself, and Matt had, that's why they seem to be like the perfect firm, because they've done that work. They can hit the ground running. If you had some different firm that might take a while to get spooled up on where you need to go, they have the foundation. Brian's kind of a known quantity for his work and quality. We just think that, you know, this is, you know, maybe the perfect group at the right time to move forward on this. As Matt said, in 1979, you know, it was a good document. We used the heck out of it. But it's time to look forward with the growth of the community. You know, they'll go everything from GIS systems on where parks are located, where are parks necessary based on growth patterns. What about sports that weren't even contemplated? You know, 15 years ago, we weren't playing soccer in Hutchinson, and 3 years ago, lacrosse was a town down by the border, you know, but now it's a game, and we have a lot of it happening. So we just think it's time, you know, the different community members moving in that might have different interests culturally, those types of things can be examined. The whole arts component within our community, I think there's some opportunity to have discussion there. And then what do we need to do from a facility standpoint moving forward? You know, as Matt said, what does recreation look like in the future?
Yeah.
You know, is it more of an individual thing? Team sports, you know, they're probably always going to be here, but to what level?
You know, and the other thing that's sent out there that we haven't had an in-depth discussion on, it's that Burnhagen property. I see this being analyzed, and that will help probably steer what's our future plan for that land. And so, like I said, I think we always talk about it. We don't, Hutchinson, we've never planned just for next year. This is just another one of those phases that have us look 5, 10, 15 years out and really start making decisions now for that 5, 10, 15 years.
sustainability, will that be a
Yeah,
part of
that was
discussion?
definitely a component in the RFP. Just, how are we gonna move forward with the existing infrastructure? What does that look like? I mean, it ties to the city's vision, and we are about sustainability. I think we're about, about the natural environment, as best you can, the whole river conversation. I mean, we have just, tons of community assets. How do we best capitalize and use them to their fullest potential?
I think, and with strategic plan, like you alluded to, the timing is really perfect.
Yes.
Well, I think as we discussed, there's probably a half dozen park and rec and, not just park and rec, community ed, yards, all of that was discussed, and we really realized that there's a lot of avenues in this community that lean in that direction, and this is hit on that. So.
I think the other piece of, there definitely will be an integration with ISD 423 too, in their new facilities, and, what are the unmet needs in the community? How do the facilities that we have today meet those needs, and what are those future needs? And where's the overlap? Is there an overlap?
And just so I guess the council, just so we have what we envision the working group would be the Park and Rec
Advisory Board?
Advisory Board, just in case that question was sitting out there. Obviously, you guys will be involved, but that will be the main group that'll be spearheading it.
And Chad serves, as the council's rep to that. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for other council members and/or the mayor to integrate into the process. It'll be a 9-month window that all these things occur, and I think there'll be ample opportunity for input.
You mentioned the arts, Matt, and I know after the presentation from, and I know Morgan's here, but the economic benefit of the arts, there was talk at that meeting that, really what we probably need to start talking about is developing a arts and culture plan and how you bring some of those different things together. And I did notice that one of the staff on Hutchinson had worked on a Lanesboro project. And so I don't think we're at the point now where we're ready to try to integrate that as part of this process, but I think something that we should probably talk about and look at going forward here and having as a separate project probably.
Right, and I think those pieces are gonna come up during this 9-month process, and, while things are moving, those specific details could be flushed out more in some future activity that may or may not overlap.
Yeah.
But I think it can get us, where we need to be.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
With, the recommendations, I guess, is.
Outlined, okay.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Setting special city council meeting on July 2nd, 2018 to award Century Avenue Southeast Reconstruction Project, letting number 1, project number 18-1.
Yes, briefly, we're finally out for bids on the Century Avenue front. We did get approvals by MnDOT and the Federal Highway Division of MnDOT Plan Review Division, so that's advertised. Documents are out on the streets, and we're hoping to open bids, or we're scheduled to open bids on Friday, June 22nd, and if we get our bids approved by MnDOT and the Fed Division again in a timely manner, or hopefully in a timely manner, we could conceivably award right before the 4th of July there, instead of waiting for the regularly scheduled council meeting on the 10th. So that would buy us an extra week, like I alluded to in the packet, which would help our cause in getting the first phase put together before Ridgewater College is back in session come August 27th.
One thing, no, we didn't put a time on there because we figured we'd leave it up to whatever works best for the council. Just thinking too, this would be an opportunity potentially on when we can get a meeting scheduled with utilities if we needed to take a formal action on their,
Lunchtime?
on their
Early, how about early morning, 8 o'clock?
Or 8 o'clock?
I will be in Ely, so it doesn't matter to me, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough week.
July 2nd.
It's the 4th.
I mean, and I just want to get back to the utility, and that might be something where, depending on when we can get a meeting together with them, if there is a desire to veto, that might be a meeting to do that, is what I was getting at. Not necessarily a meeting where we'd have a joint meeting with the utilities at the same time, because then that narrows your window on there, on that. So it doesn't, to me, time's not a, so whether it's 8, noon, or 4,
Well, Chad said you're not going to be around, right?
I won't be around. Is anybody else going to be gone?
But we'd have
4.
We'd have 4. So if we did it at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, on that, the Monday the 2nd, is that right? Is that July?
I'll just go
8
into work
o'clock?
late.
Yeah.
8 o'clock on the 2nd?
I'll have to get up early. So,
You have to have a motion to set that meeting, Matt?
Is that all right, Kent, on your
Yep,
end?
that works for me, by all means.
Just thinking,
I'm sorry.
Matt and Mark, is
Yeah,
that
that
okay?
works. Yep.
Motion to set that meeting? Have a motion to set the meeting?
I'll make a motion to set the meeting for July 2nd at 8 a.m.
second.
Motion made by Mary, second by John, to set the meeting for 8 o'clock on July 2nd. Any other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Quick disclaimer on that front, if we don't get approvals by the end of the prior week, come Friday, and we don't have things in order, we will, we can cancel, I assume, at any point. Yeah. So, we'll let you know if there won't be a meeting prior to the weekend. But we're hoping we can, get that awarded.
He'll call you at 7 on the 2nd.
I'll still be recovering from the league conference.
It's actually,
8:30 Friday, the 22nd, is our bid opening.
All right, thanks, Kent. Setting liquor license violation hearing for Sonora's Mexican Restaurant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As I outlined in the board action form that was in the packet back in 2017, Sonora's had an illegal sale of alcohol, and as a result of that, that could possibly trigger some license consequences with regard to their on-sale license. As I noted in the board action form in the past, you've organized into a subcommittee to conduct a hearing, and specifically with regard to this matter, the license holder has requested to have a hearing before anything happened to their license. So I'd be looking for you to designate perhaps 2 of you to act as a subcommittee to conduct a hearing with regard to their license, and also set a hearing date and time that we could notify the license holder so they can come and tell their side of the story.
Well, I think myself and John have to kind of bow out from this because we frequent the restaurant quite often, so I would, Mary and Chad, it'd be fine.
I eat there a lot too. I'd rather have Steve do it, to be honest.
I eat there once in a while.
Yeah. Mary and Steve?
I'm fine with that.
Me too.
We could have, I had my dog down there last week with me, so.
Mary and Steve, and when...
And if you're already going to be here on the 2nd,
sure,
that might be a appropriate time to have it.
I can, if you can, Steve. Which time can you take off work?
Well, I've been burning through some vacation, and that's, so what day of the week is that?
That's a Monday.
That's a Monday.
And so we're off the 4th, so.
I mean, if you can't do it, Steve, I mean, I feel comfortable doing it too, but.
I can do it, and would later in the afternoon be okay?
I'm fine with that.
Is all going to be around?
Like,
Yes.
what are you
So
talking later?
3:30?
Like 3:30?
3:30?
I'm okay with that.
So I'll make
3:30 on the 2nd?
Yep, second would be fine. So I'll make that a motion then?
I'll
For
second.
3:30, second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to set that violation hearing for Sonora's
Set
on the
anything.
2nd at 3:30.
That sounds great.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. All right, then we have sanctions for Tokyo Grill liquor license violation.
So, in the same vein, during the same compliance check period, Tokyo Grill had a violation. Again, their employee pled guilty to the offense, and they are not requesting a hearing. They're waiving their right to a hearing. So really the question before you tonight is if you wanted to implement any sanctions against their license. I think I set forth in the board action form kind of what the parameters of those sanctions can be, and also noted to the council that, since this is their first violation, I suggested, just based on the past consequences that the council has given over the years, at least since I've been here, the recommendation from city staff would be that they pay a $500 fine, that they conduct mandatory training to employees on liquor license laws, and that they purchase an age identification device and show proof of that purchase by July 31st of this year. And certainly those are just recommendations. You can impose whatever consequences you want. You don't have to impose any if you don't think that's necessary, but again, my suggestion was just based on violations we've had in the past.
This is their first one, then?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make that a motion with the recommendations of the fine, the training, and the age identification device.
I'll second that.
Motion by John, second by Steve to take their recommendations of the city attorney.
Did another question?
Sure.
We have these requirements and, the employees are charged, and I can't remember what level of an offense it is, but.
Yep, it's a misdemeanor.
Okay. But then on the tobacco side, we don't go through this at all. It's more of a, what happens then?
Yep, and actually,
I know we do this checks and the person gets dinged.
right, and we haven't really had those violations for a while. However, there's-
About a
With 25%
months ago, I think
last year.
it was.
they just did a check again, and so there have been some violations that you'll be considering in the future. But right, it is set up differently. I guess I can't explain why. It's always been in the city code where.
City code specifically states, first violation it's this, second violation it's that.
$75 the
Yeah,
first time?
75.
Correct, and. Right,
Yeah.
they're entitled to a hearing. Unfortunately, I'm the hearing officer under that ordinance.
And I don't know if some of that is directly related to state statute.
I
I'm
don't
not sure,
think
but
so.
The one difference is that in our ordinance, it specifically lays out what the violation is, to where with liquor, it gives the council the option. Those are the two differences.
Any other discussion? Call the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2018 Airport Improvement Project items, 2018 AIP 8 Unit T hangar construction, letting number 15, project number 18-15. Resolution number 14902, resolution for authorizing to execute Federal Aviation Administration and Minnesota Department of Transportation documents on the behalf of the city of Hutchinson.
All right, this is Public Works staff bringing back our airport T hangar, like Gary mentioned, 8 units. Project, you may recall, about a month or so ago, council approved the bid contingent on funding to Kramer Excavating and Trucking. We did have a very favorable bid, low bid out of the 2 bids that were submitted. Thus, what staff has been doing in conjunction with Bolton and Mink, the consultant, and working with Matt and Andy in administration and finance. Also, we've arrived at a approach to fund this project, and I think it's taken a lot of hard work on staff's end and with the assistance of Bolton and Mink. I won't get into the details. Obviously, there's plenty of detail within your packet. I just want to note that what's arrived at, considering all the allocations from other airports, is about a shortfall on the local match side of things of approximately $60,000. We propose that $31,000 be funded with existing funds within the airport construction fund, thus leaving just short of $29,000 to be funded by the capital projects fund. Then that's the conversation that's been held with Matt and Andy. So we're all on the same page, and this has gone to Resource Allocation Committee. Thus, like Gary mentioned, we are asking council to approve the enclosed resolution, which basically now formalizes the award of the project to Kramer Excavating and Trucking. It also approves 2 work orders to Bolton and Mink to administer the design process and bidding process, which obviously they have done, but it ultimately it approves the payment of that effort through this FAA grant. And then it also approves the construction administration effort by Bolton and Mink also. And then it just approves the signatory authority, basically, to execute all the FAA and MnDOT documents associated with this. That's the Cliff Notes version, John isn't here with us tonight, he's on vacations, but I am very familiar with this as it's been developed by John and staff, and it's taken a lot of hard work, contacting these other airports and getting them basically to dedicate their entitlements. And in the end, the Airport Commission is very supportive of this project, and we think it's an excellent opportunity that won't present itself at this cost in the future, just basically based on what we're seeing on the construction, labor, materials front and the escalating prices.
So just want to make sure, when I look at, let's see, some of this is payback money.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But then there's still 420, 480, 490,000 in other allocations that we'll have to pay back. So we got a plan, that.
It'll be with our future FAA
Right,
allocations.
yeah. Mm-hmm. But that all works with the
Yeah,
future
and that's why
plans.
John alludes to the pavement preservation. That was the big concern. We still wanted to deliver that pavement preservation, that seal coating project in the future. And we're confident, with the grant mechanism from MnDOT that picks up 70% of that future seal coating project, the city can easily match those dollars, approximately $26,000, with our infrastructure maintenance funds, which is an appropriate use of those funds.
The airport commission, they were dead set on making sure that the runway was taken care of after putting so much money into it already. So they wanted to, they considered putting this on the back burner to make sure that the runway got taken care of too. So, but they did a good job of putting this together for the airport. So.
And our FAA allocation is like $250,000 a year?
Yes, I believe so. I
That
could
range,
do the, maybe back into the math here, but,
It says allocates 150 per year up to 450 maximum. That's on the kind of.
That was our fund balance was
itemization.
237. But, yeah.
but I just want to stress, that the numbers have been worked through by staff, by the consultant, like Gary mentioned, through the airport commission, and there was many conversations, obviously, with that group to develop a comfort level, basically making that commitment of our future entitlements.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Motion by Steve, second by myself to approve resolution number 14902. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Project award for the 2018 street seal coat coating project, letting number 6, project number 18-6. Under there is resolution number 14905, accepting bids and awarding contract.
Yes, we received 3 bids this year for our seal coating program, which we deliver every other year. Our engineer's estimate was just over $240,000. The low bid is from Pearson Brothers of Hanover, Minnesota, at $186,216.80. Quite a bit lower than our estimate, a very, very favorable price for this work, even looking historically back over the past decade or so that we've been delivering seal coat projects. So they're going to be in the area, and this, I guess, fell into their schedule pretty well. So on that note, we're going to look at increasing the scope to some degree and take advantage of this price, and we've tentatively negotiated a change order with them to address some other seal coating.
So how much more do you think
We're
price-wise?
fine tuning that at
200 or-
about 35,000.
Okay.
So that would put us, up around 220 or so, 225
And our
With-
budget is $125,000
a
a year
year.
every 2
So there's
years.
250,000 allocated to it. So with that, we would recommend approval, and the resolution is included within your packet.
They've done some of the other jobs, haven't they?
They've done every seal
that's what
coating
I was
job
thinking.
since I've been here except for one.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll
They
make
do good work, no doubt about it.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 14905.
I'll second it.
Motion by John, second by Chad to approve. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resetting August 14th, 2018 council meeting due to primary election.
We've had a, excuse me, and we had this happen 2 years ago, but our second meeting in April falls on the primary election day, and by state law, we can't have them between 6 and 8 p.m. Last time we had a meeting at 4 o'clock. I would say if that's an option again this year. If we do go down that route, I think last time we had 3 public hearings, and that probably wasn't ideal because of the time of day, and so if we want to have it at 4 o'clock, that's fine. I direct staff to, if we're going to have a public hearing, it probably won't be one of them at 1, or just one, and we do it like at 5:30. But, otherwise, I think the alternative would probably do it on Thursday. That seems to be.
I checked our schedule. We won't be having I thought we might have one that date, but we won't now.
I'll make a motion to have it at 4 PM on August 14th.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to have the August 14th meeting at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have Hutchinson Public Library Board minutes from April 23rd, 2018. Dolph, you have anything else for us tonight? Kent?
One thing, City of Litchfield helped out with our storm damage, tree removals and the likes, a couple of weeks ago. And, yeah, they were over here for a couple of days, and the one day they actually had 7 people over here all day long. So very thankful for that support from them that they offered up, and actually coincided with our Public Works Week annual barbecue, so we were even able to serve them lunch, I guess, just by coincidence.
Yeah, I ran into Donovan, and he mentioned that too, and he said that should mention that they did one heck of a job over here, so.
Thanks to them. That's it.
Mark?
Nothing else tonight.
Nothing? John?
Nothing.
Steve?
2 things. One, the Loose Line Trail, Winstead Airport, that actually is out for bids right now. And with the completion date of October 31st. So that's really gonna.
What would the route be around there, Steve? Do you know?
The current alignment where the pavement ends now, just east of Cable Avenue.
Grass Lake Road, yeah.
Yeah, it would actually curve south towards the airport, run east, then just north of the runway, and then kind of curve back up to connect with the new piece that they added on the west side of County Road 1. It's about 9/10 of a mile.
And they're replacing 3 culverts.
Right.
As part of it, toward west of Winstead. True, I never figured out where they all were.
One's actually on the east side and 2 are on the west, but that's why it got slowed up a little bit. They just thought this was an opportunity to get that done as well. We had an email this morning from Margaret Donahue asking for support for federal dollars for the Highway 212. Yeah, I don't know, does it pay to have all the council members and staff sign it, or mayor and council members? What looks better, any preference?
What do you think, Kent?
Honestly, I don't know if it matters. I think it's just more an indication that there's support from the city. You're more than welcome. I'm sure Matt would agree. Everybody can sign it, but honestly.
Put the whole, I mean.
Or maybe just have Gary and Matt sign it then? Kent, I guess?
Probably 3 of us would be good for them.
Yeah.
Yep, we can do that. And yeah, I just on that front, and Carver County is pushing this through the Southwest Transportation Coalition. I think federal dollars are going to be the avenue on the 212 front. As we saw the corridors of commerce dollars get allocated, and there was some metro outstate dynamics, and that I don't think was very favorable with respect to the 212 gaps within Carver County, because that is within the metro district. So that plays against them, and that second round allocations, you obviously, well, if you've noticed, a large portion of that went to Highway 23 out.
And then the Highway 14 paving is getting done from Mankato to Rochester.
Yeah.
That, okay.
It was 14 and 23 on the outside.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd ever get any 212 money until 14's done.
Well, yeah, and then I think as long as, that portion of the corridor is within the metro district, there's going to be on a truly competitive scoring standpoint, there's going to be other projects in the metro that outscore 212. If 212 was outstate, a lot of us in that community that are familiar with these corridors, we'd be making the argument, why would 23 get dollars and not 212? Obviously, but it's 212's in the metro. That's why they're not getting the dollars, that portion of 212. So that's why they're going down the federal route at this point, because state dollars are gonna be tough to capture.
Feel encouraged?
Yeah, I know the coalition here and, county engineer at Carver County is, doing everything he can to push this cause.
And that's what our county commissioners and the county engineer were lobbying for.
Exactly, they're out at the
DC.
fly-in a few weeks ago on this front.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Chad?
Sure, well, it's Water Carnival week. I thought I'd just run through, I have a short list of some of the highlights. So Thursday night, we're gonna have the boat parade. Friday, Teddy Bear Band at noon in Library Square and the pageant. Saturday, there's all kinds of sporting events around town. Kitty Day and then the street dance. Then Sunday, obviously the parade and the coronation. So always a fun week, so see everybody there.
They have a human foosball again?
I am the chair of the Human Foosball, so yes, we are, and
That's
that is
good for a couple of injuries usually, isn't it?
I actually broke 2 ribs last year playing, so I can attest it was on my own behalf, my own doing. But yeah, it's a violent game, but a lot of fun.
Steve, is there a band down at the River Song band show too?
Andy Austin will be there on Thursday during the boat parade.
Okay.
Which is a lot of fun, so.
May play before the fireworks too.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's fireworks on Thursday and Sunday this year.
Thursday and yeah, that's right.
It's gonna be crazy.
It's great.
That's it?
Those are the highlights.
Oh, and Chad will be dressed up because you are an escort again.
I am an
that's right.
escort, so I'll be in a tuxedo, looking sharp.
Yep.
Probably won't recognize him.
He's
No,
breaking
it's-
out the leisure suit.
This is a black tuxedo, no plaid, so that'll be weird for people.
At least plaid tie?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh,
I haven't picked it up though. I'll find out tomorrow.
Steve?
Just one thing that, just as a follow-up from the last meeting, and a question, but the new brochures for the sculpture stroll got printed and they're out and about, so I just wanted to let people know.
Good. Mary?
I just have a couple things. One is for Kent. The trees that are down in South Park, when are they going to be taken care of?
We might have to defer.
When?
2 were gone today, 2 will be done tomorrow.
Okay, because I just noticed when I'm out walking, there's a lot of kids playing on those trees.
There was a lot of them down.
Yes, there was, I know that. And
It
also,
was really good how quickly
right,
got the big one taken, or the problem ones.
the
yeah.
problem ones, right. I know that.
Yep.
Another thing I was just going to mention was, if you're looking for an activity for your children, the library has reading in the park on, this summer, so it's free, so get your kids involved. Also, on Saturday, there's a car show in town, and it's down on the river, so go and see it. It starts at 10, it's from 10 to 2.
Say
It's
it,
part of the J.C.'s.
say it carefully. Who's sponsoring it?
I don't, gas holes.
Set her up.
Yeah.
So go see the cars. They'll be parked on the river.
Where is it? In front of Marco, correct? On 3rd Avenue
It's on
there?
3rd, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. So you
Down
can
by
just,
the old Business Wear Solutions.
Yep.
Yeah. So that starts at
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Registration starts at 10, so enjoy
You-
Water Carnival.
You had, how many cars were there last year, Mary? About 30?
I think there were more than that.
Was there?
I think there were like I want to say we had 50,
Did you?
but it's going to depend on the weather too.
Yes.
Yeah. It is the Water Carnival. I think you should change that name.
Bring it up.
Water. Sprinkle carnival.
Thanks, Mary.
That's it.
Mr. Yannick?
I know John and I are attending the league conference next week, and I think
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, we do have a workshop for our next council meeting. That's at 4 o'clock. That's regarding workforce housing. I should have some information out to you guys probably next week. They're presenting. And then I do want to do a recognition of Hutchinson Health. They are, I know it was in the paper last week with they have sponsored 3 free evenings at the aquatic for the public, and just want to make sure that they get recognized for.
And that is extended hours, correct,
Yep,
Matt?
5 to 8 on, actually, June 21st, July 19th. That's it from me.
With all the storm and everything else, please, now, you know, it used to be always fire hydrants in the wintertime. Now it's storm drains. I
Clean 'em out.
noticed that a lot of them got kind of plugged up, so if you guys can grab your compost cart and kind of mosey down to the gutters and.
I tried, it didn't work. I had the rake all the way down, but I think then the plug finally blew loose. But it was clogged down in the pipe.
Yeah.
Might be,
Yeah.
yes, and Chad's mentioning, or the water carnival discussion, and I don't know how our council is, the fountain, obviously down by the dam is out of service. We're trying to diagnose exactly what the issue is, and we're gonna have to bring it to shore early next week. We've coordinated with an electrician. There is power into it, however, the pump is not cooperating. So that's what we know now, and we need to work with an electrician and potentially LTP to figure out what our issue is with that.
And
Just in case you were asked this weekend when there's people around and the likes, you know now.
Fountain in Library Square? As long as we're
It was
talking.
supposed to be taken care of in April, but we had 2 feet of snow. So we got pushed to the back of the line with the contractor. Right around Memorial Day, he said he was going to be 3 weeks out, but then we needed to build an ark. So hopefully he gets here, but we're in line. And, you know, it's significant work that's occurring. We're hoping that the work performed will help well into the future so we don't have electrical connections under the water, which is the way it is now. In the new format, it'll be outside in a separate pit, which is probably a good thing.
Just a little stray voltage there for a
We
while.
had a
wasn't
little
there?
bit of that, that's why we shut it down last year. We just thought it'd be bad form if a young person was in there, and a lot of pesky paperwork, so.
All right, thanks,
All right.
Dolph. I can't, Second Avenue Bridge, I can kind of tell you what's going on there because it's real close to me. So they got the guardrails down, I seen, and got some of the decking off. I talked to the contractor, and he feared that if it don't rain again and the river comes up, they got to get underneath to take some bolts out and stuff. So they're moving along on it.
Yep, it's down there this afternoon also, yeah. Sorry, forgot to mention that, but yeah, it's going well, and hopefully, yeah, we can get the river flows back down a little bit. Obviously, there was quite a bit of rain to the west of us here.
Rain on Thursday, isn't there?
Yeah, potentially, and into the weekend, it sounds like.
No rain. Water carnival.
Water carnival, yep, they're Superman.
Alrighty. Well, that's all. School's out, so a lot of kids out riding bikes, rollerblading on the streets. So be careful when you're out driving because they usually don't look where they're going. So with that, adjournment's in order.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right.
Motion by Mary, second by myself to